All right, welcome to another exciting show of the Bitcoin Otter. The Bitcoin Otter Show, only on 97.7 FM, the city. We have a really cool interview today. We have a guest in the studio, so we want to welcome everyone that are watching us over Facebook Live, over YouTube Live, over the Bitcoin Otter Facebook account, and those of you that are listening to us over 97.7 FM, as well as on over apps like Radio Garden and online over thecity977.com. So without further ado, we've got a great guest in the studio. Rick Gamboa is joining us today, and without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to the Bitcoin Otter himself, Chris Ott.
Greetings, blessings, and good fortune, everybody. As Joe said, we have a guest today, and I've been talking to him, and wow, this gentleman here, he is, and please take no offense, Rick, what I would consider a crypto geek. And you know, we used to make fun of geeks in high school, but what did you call them a little later after high school? Do you remember? Boss, yes, exactly. So, Rick, over here.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
And yeah, this is a high-tech operation here. So this arm that God gave me is the one that's moving the camera. So what we'd like to ask is in general and real quick, you've already told me. Tell our audience what it is you do, Rick. What are your passions?
Sure. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've been all over different aspects in just digital marketing and software development for the past 10 years. And frankly, crypto for the past 2.5 years has really consumed my thought process.
All right. So one of the reasons why I'm excited to talk to you is because I am a beginner's type of instructor. Okay, I can tell people how to get into crypto. Mm-hmm. I can show them, handhold them through the whole process.
Wonderful.
And I'm good at that, and that's part of my business model, right? Mm-hmm. However, I'm not into, at the depth you are, I'm not into the crypto world, not yet anyway. I want to be there, but it's a steep learning curve.
Oh man, I would consider myself a techie, frankly, and even for the first year and a half, it was still scratching the surface. So I can understand how overwhelming it could be for an individual who is not even really well versed in, or they would consider themselves tech savvy. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Those of us that are not real techies, and some of us don't want to even go down that road, yet we want to involve ourselves in crypto. We want to make sure that we're on board before the train takes off. We're going to have people like you to guide us, right? What is it your business does? Well, how do you help the people that come to you in the business world?
This is trying to reconnect. In regards to the business world, I've mostly been around digital marketing and stuff like that. I've been kind of networking with different NFT projects and such. Blockchain miners, one is one that I'm really connected with. Also, Cartoons NFT. They're actually over there in New York, NFT NYC. I'm not too sure if you heard of that event.
Not yet, but I'll look at it.
Yeah, it's a huge collaboration of just large, big players in the NFT space in particular. And so essentially what my endeavors are actually heading towards really is digital marketing and just really kind of Solidity smart contract development for NFT projects as of late.
I'm going to break this down in the beginner's terms, okay?
Yeah.
And who do we have here? We got Miles, Marcos, Omar. How you guys doing, everybody? Glad you can make it. Thanks for tuning in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the beginner's version of what you said to my understanding, and you can correct me if so. So
sure.
You used the word tokenization, correct? Okay, so tokenization is valuing something using a cryptocurrency. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin, but a tokenized asset is something that allows people to buy a portion of it, sort of like shares of a company.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the exciting things that's going on is in real estate. People are tokenizing buildings. They're tokenizing apartment buildings. They're tokenizing high rises. And what occurs then is you can be a part owner of that. So when you say smart contracts, there's another thing that I'm going to break down in layman's terms. A smart contract is one that begins to put our business doings, the world of business commerce, into what's called a trustless stance. Meaning, you don't need a CEO of a board administrator, a secretary, and all of those things to administer the fund, the main pool of finance in a smart contract. Okay, why? Because it's all encoded into the contract, and it gets to be reviewed by all parties involved, and they can get their lawyers on it and all that to pass, muster on their end. And then when all parties agree, this program is put into effect on the blockchain, which is very secure, and we went into that a few other shows ago. But it is trustless in that we don't have to worry about the treasurer running off with our cash, right? It is transparent in that we can see every transaction with that wallet, that pool, that fund, in and out, and we can examine it. Hey, so and so got this much of Bitcoin, for instance. Why? What's the deal there? And then we contact somebody. Hey, okay, yeah, that was for a job well done or whatever. But it's all transparent. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you hit it right on the head of the nail, if you will. Really, at the end of the day, smart contracts really are algorithmic binding contracts. So kind of like how you mentioned in regards to real estate, escrow services will eventually adopt smart contracts in regards to...
let me interrupt. You said escrow services, not escort service. Was that escort? We don't... just to be clear here, Rick.
Most definitely.
Family show,
I do stutter.
That's a different show.
On occasion. That's a different show. That's after 12. No, but yes, escrow services, a lot of insurance companies and escrow companies are actually looking into smart contracts to incorporate into their business model, really, because like you mentioned, frankly, blockchain technology is the safest layer ever on the internet. It's very difficult to crack, and essentially, like when an attacker tries to attack a particular smart contract, it's not able to alter the confines of what's in that silo. I like to consider smart contracts a silo.
Okay.
So like essentially when you create a contract, you're putting it into a silo and you're locking it in there, and it's essentially immutable. You can't mess with it. If someone tries to mess with it, you're only making a copy of that augmentation. Like it's not the same thing at all. It's actually by attempting to change it, you're actually creating a verifiable copy, if you will, but it's not
verifiably duplicated. It shouts, "Hey, I'm a copy. I'm not the real thing."
Precisely. It says, well, you can with auditing tools, you can actually verify that it is a copy and not the original. So it's really interesting, and it's very transparent, like you mentioned. It's
okay. Excellent. So what I had planned also, in case Rick couldn't make it, and I'm going to go with it. We talked about this prior to the show. Is an analogy that I'd like to bring up that came, and everybody knows I'm a big Bitcoin Ben fan, right? If you haven't checked out Bitcoin Ben stuff, do it. You'll really like yourself for doing it, right? So here's what he did on, I think it was yesterday's show. So he made this analogy, and we've gone over this, right? But he made this analogy between what we're going through right now in the cryptoverse to when the first explorers from Europe, there were actually, as a history buff, Rick is a history buff, so he knows very well that people besides, that were on the Mayflower, the Nina and the Pinta, they were
Santa Maria.
Yes, they were definitely not the first ones to be here. However, that's what we're taught in the history books. So the people who came over on that boat, they got off the boat, okay? So what we see now today are people who look at the price of Bitcoin, like my good friend Omar, looks at the price of Bitcoin and says, it's worthless. It's below, 20,000 now. It's going down, and it is. And between you and I hope it goes down more because I want more. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes. So that being said, it is basically related to, or in the analogy of Bitcoin Ben, that the people who got off the boat, and let's just say all they could do was look down, and they saw the sand, and it was sandy, it was unstable, and they said, you know what, we can't live here. What are we going to do here? This is untenable. We're look, it's worthless. This sand, it's just our feet are sinking in. It's shifting, or what? And those people are unable to look up and see the mountains, see the valleys, see the landscape, the forest, and the bounty that land holds for those people who are in what they perceived as a new world. Okay? Now, in the cryptoverse, it's very much the same because there are stakes being made, claims being made in if you want to call it the metaverse, you can, but it's the cryptoverse among many metaverses. It doesn't have to be Zuckerbucks, right? Not that dude. He's not the only one. He's definitely not the only one, and probably not even the biggest one. Maybe he is, I don't know. But regardless, what we would like to do, what is my goal here at Bitcoin Otter? I'm a faith-based organization, so Jesus Christ comes first in my book and foremost in my book. And what I also like to do, though, is help people by telling them, hey, listen, this is a time like no other, because we're going into a phase, we're going into a new world, so to speak, whether we like it or not, because right around the corner are the central bank digital currencies. So when this shift happens, when this U.S. Federal Reserve note falls, and it will, it's going, guys, it's going. When that happens, you're going to get dragged into digital currencies. And we're not talking about, I got digital currency now, it's in my bank, I see it, it's, I can send it, I can receive. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about encoded digital currencies, meaning the US dollar will now be programmed. And it will be programmed not by what you want. It'll be programmed by what the privately owned Federal Reserve wants. So, if, Rick, they don't want you buying pizza, you ain't getting pizza because your digital dollars will not purchase pizza.
Yeah, it's all dependent on the administration and really what their protocol is. Like, it could be benevolent as like, okay, well, people who make X amount less will get airdropped money, but then if you have an authoritarian who'd be like, okay, well, like you said, you can't have pizza, or like X, Y, and Z is a pariah and they sell pizza, you can't have that pizza.
Or they said the wrong thing on Twitter or Facebook.
Precisely. I mean, it could, and that's the thing about centralized organizations having too much control with currencies. I think people are kind of waking up to that, thankfully, and really blockchain is kind of the first ever actualization of money outside of government control, so that's kind of intriguing. But yeah, like it's heading that way. I mean, there's hybrids, of course. You're going to have your quote-unquote CeFi, DeFi kind of stuff.
Right,
we already have it.
Unfortunately, we're seeing some cracks in that system, aren't we?
Most definitely. Now, this is where we're seeing the successful projects thrive or the sketchy ones fail, unfortunately.
Which is a good thing. I mean,
yes.
In itself, the survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, because there's some business models that unfortunately could not stand the test of time, and really as an investor, you want to see this happen. You want to see the cracks show themselves, and really it just becomes an easier path to walk down once that really goes down.
Right. And for those of you that may not be following quite what it is we're talking about, this DeFi is decentralized finance, and I've spoken of this particular app called Celsius a few times on the show, and I was actually I partook in the advantageous interest, but thank God I saw what was coming, pulled out my Bitcoin from there.
Great.
And right now, I don't know if you were involved in that, Rick. I don't know.
I was actually. Unfortunately, I still have some money locked up in there, but I had heard about potential issues with synthetic Ethereum. That was one of the main catalysts. So essentially, there's this program called Lido. It's a decentralized lending platform. Essentially, you can deposit your Ethereum for synthetic Ethereum. So essentially, they're using like a beacon chain. So essentially, it's kind of like the precursor to Ethereum 2.0. I might be getting a little too techie for you guys right now, but essentially, you can stake your Ethereum and you actually earn a nice interest on it, like 10%. But you can't do that with real Ethereum. You have to use the synthetic Ethereum,
right?
Which Celsius had put millions in deposit for, but there was a bank run on synthetic Ethereum, so essentially it lost its peg. So synthetic Ethereum operates as like, okay, the price of Ethereum is X, then synthetic Ethereum will follow, and it has to be pegged 1-to-1.
Correct. A tether, if you will.
Exactly. But unfortunately, that it lost its peg. Now, it's not necessarily a broken project. It's actually considered like a discount. So it's
Which Celsius are you talking about, or are you talking about the synthetic Ethereum?
synthetic Ethereum.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a BTC. Are you familiar with Galaxy Digital by any
I'm not.
chance? Well, they're essentially like a synthetic Bitcoin. They're a stock that trades on the S&P 500.
Okay.
And essentially, they sell their stock at a discount of BTC.
I've got a question for you. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt, but it just popped in my head.
You're good.
I am well versed. I have studied, so to speak, the manipulation of the gold and silver spot prices.
Heavily, yeah.
Okay, heavily manipulated. And the way that they do this, everybody, I don't know if you know, if you look at gold at about $1,800 an ounce, and you look at silver at a paltry $23 or $24 an ounce. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it's just crazily underpriced, right? Note, I did not say undervalued, because the value is, as of yet, right now, undetermined. However, they use the futures markets to short sell in the paper markets, putting the spot price of the real metal low enough so that no one is alerted when the Federal Reserve note is going off the rails. Because if people saw $50,000 ounce gold, they know there's something wrong with the dollar, right?
Precisely.
Right. So they manipulate it that way. So my question to you is this, Rick. Is what you are just talking about a potential way for them to manipulate the price of Bitcoin?
Oh, precisely. You look at what they have passed and what they haven't passed. So they passed a Bitcoin futures ETF versus a spot ETF. So that's a big difference. A future ETF is exactly what you said, and what actually augments the
They can
prices.
short sell it.
Precisely. And really what they're doing is they're accumulating, but they're hedging their bets. So what a lot of these hedge funds do is they'll acquire a crap ton of Bitcoin just to short it. And while they're doing that, they're making money on the way down. And as they push the price to their desired point, usually to liquidate their
jump in.
opponents,
Right.
They jump in and they scoop up the forced sold crypto.
Is there any way, because this is what those banksters do on Wall Street with the I can't remember the term, it's like a hyper fast mode of trading, so they've worked it out so that they have super secret and fast fiber optic lines and algorithms, so that they get in and out of markets way before anybody like ourselves could get in or out. Do they have that with this futures ETF?
Oh yeah, it's brutal out there, man. It is totally brutal. So like, funny enough, I've actually worked with some algorithmic trading bots. That's one of my pet projects, actually. But like, essentially, since 2013 in Wall Street, 90% plus of trading is algorithmic since 2013. So everything that we've discussed is emotionless. It's algorithmic. They don't care who they're hurting. They don't care who they're liquidating. Or it's just business as usual kind of thing. So
and computerized, so they can also look away and say they had no.
They're like on vacation.
Knowledge of it. Yeah.
Going down.
Yeah, as grandma loses her house.
Unfortunately, that's just kind of how Wall Street is. It really is at this point. But yeah, so going back to it, so like in terms of legal legislation, you look at the United States, actually very behind in regards to global, because really Australia already has a spot ETF. Canada has multiple spot ETFs. Japan as well. The United States, unfortunately, is lagging behind in that category.
Okay, I want to revisit something that you had said that is your viewpoint, and I won't argue with your viewpoint because it's yours. We all have one. But my viewpoint differs in that I don't believe that a centralized agency like the Federal Reserve can ever be benign. You mentioned that, it depends on the administration and so forth. I think that at this point we've become so at the top of our political system become so corrupt that the administration doesn't always matter, because the Fed can always print more. The Fed can do what it wants. It's autonomous. It is private. So I like to tell people it's a joke when they come out with the Forbes magazine richest man in the world. That's a load of crap, because anybody who has a share in the Federal Reserve, the privately owned Federal Reserve, can just print up more money anyway. Nobody's richer than them, right? How can you be richer than somebody who has the machine that makes it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And that's what. And there's big issues on China China as well. Like, there's a bunch of unfortunately, billionaires, millionaires that left China in fear of assassination because they kind of blew the whistle on what they're doing. Essentially, is kind of like what we're seeing in the United States. It's like they're
what
just
would ever
printing
give them
out
that idea, Assange?
Right. Yeah. So like, but there's a really interesting interview. I forget the man's name, but I could send a link to you. It's a really interesting watch.
Absolutely.
But, essentially, there's this a multi-billion-dollar entrepreneur who left China because he blew the whistles, saying that really the people who were in charge of the money printer were printing for themselves and their friends, and all of the books in regards to the Asian market are augmented.
So this corruption is worldwide. I mean, it's obvious to see now.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, and I like to do this fairly often to point it out. The portion of our society that is awake to this stuff, that can see this stuff, it is, in my opinion, because I haven't done any studies scientifically on this, but it seems to be through conversation and polling people, that the equation runs along the lines of a scale between the people who watch TV and the people who don't really tune in to, let's say, Dancing with the Stars or The View or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you have people that watch a lot of TV, they're normally not resonating with this type of information.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
Oh, yes, definitely. There's a lot of distractions out there. I mean, really, what's the concept of money? There's some people that don't really understand the concept of money.
Sure.
Some people, well, to be honest, like, some people call the dollar money, but it's not money. It's cash.
Correct.
It's literally, it's government debt.
Not exact. I was just going to say that. It is an instrument of debt.
Yeah.
It's not an instrument, an asset. Like Bitcoin is a deflationary asset. It is built in the code to be a deflationary instrument.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like with Bitcoin, and really Bitcoin or crypto in general, or true crypto, like not the pyramid scheme stuff.
Right.
True crypto actually solved a huge philosophical and mathematical issue that was plaguing like these really intellectuals for so long. It's called the Byzantine Generals Problem. I'm not sure.
Yes.
And essentially, like, how can pseudo-anonymous individuals validate consensus amongst truth? That's essentially what it is, and the blockchain does that, really. We have pseudo-anonymous wallets, but we have algorithmically designed computers that validate transactions and through consensus figure out what the blockchain is up to.
Right, and that plays heavily into and relies heavily on decentralization.
Precisely, yeah. Bitcoin is really the only true actualization of that proof of concept, which is what cracked the Byzantine problem. And
correct me if I'm wrong, just for our listeners and our viewers, the Byzantine problem, it primarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, it hinges on a lack of communication, correct?
Yeah, because centralization all comes down to like how can one individual or how can one entity validate really information from point A to point B, because it's just a really interesting story. I highly recommend you and your audience to like check it out. Like the question of the Byzantine Generals Problem. It's for a long time it was considered kind of like one of those
an enigma,
chalkboard. We got to solve this things. And and Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper really kind of actualized that.
Yes. And we've covered Mr. Nakamoto or Mrs. or Ms. Nakamoto, who knows, right?
Yeah.
A group of people, right? Hey, Joe, you got any questions for us? And let's also give the station number in case anyone out there wants to, you may think, and you could be right, that, Bitcoin Otter, he's a great guy and all, but, he doesn't have a real depth of knowledge on all this stuff. I got a really deep question. Well, we got a guy now that'll be able to answer it. So you can call in and ask a question, any kind of question.
That's right. If you want to call in the studio and ask a question live on the air, you can call area code 956-789-0702. That's area code 956-789-0702. 0702. You can always contact the Bitcoin Otter himself by dialing area code 737-256-9339. That's 737-256-9339. You can also post your question on Bitcoin Otter's Facebook live on his channel, or you can post a question also on the radio station's Facebook channel, so that we can answer it here live in the studio while we have Rick Gamboa with us. And so now I've got a question. Do you want to buy into Bitcoin for long-term holdings? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. I myself see it as a store of value. I understand it's not necessarily acting like that right now, but I feel like long term, like you had said, I mean, the dollar supply is infinite. Bitcoin supply is 21 million. And I know there's a lot of naysayers who might say, well, how can you validate that? Well, really, there's actually a lot of tools you can use online, like Etherscan, for example. They themselves track the actual transactions and also the supply in real time. Frankly, I mean, U.S. dollars, you can hide them, behind a wall. There's a lot of people discussing it's used for money laundering. Well, frankly, you have to be an idiot. Like, if you're trying to money launder with Bitcoin, that is the worst avenue, because it's an open.
I'm glad you covered that.
It's an open ledger.
That's one of the things that the central bankers like to throw out every time Bitcoin's mentioned in some sort of conversation. It's a money laundering. It's a scam. This is what criminals use, right? But all you have to do is just think about it for a minute, and you see, do criminals use the U.S. dollar?
Precisely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a leap at all.
The thing is, when you say something over and over and over again, I think people really just kind of fall prey. So they're just so busy with their day and lives, where they just see a narrative, like a little headline, and they just kind of absorb it subconsciously, and they just run with it. Right,
and that's what mainstream media is all about. It's a conditioning process. There's a reason why shows that come out on television are called programming.
Very true, right?
Right?
Yeah.
And they program us to think in a certain way, to react to certain things, and I won't go too far into it, but there's the whole Hegelian dialect is what this is all about. It's they create a problem, they use their bullhorn to cause panic, and they know all along that they have the solution. Now, it's not the solution that the people think it is. It's not going to benefit them in any way. They might think that way in the first part, but it's always been designed in their back pocket. They have it like it's a knife behind their back, and here's the solution, and then they come out with it. Yeah. So we're looking at it at a time period where the banks are losing control, and that is their design, to control currency. It's centralized control. What they're finding is that they're losing this control. So back to my point about the new world, we are going to be in the cryptoverse.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, whether you're dragged in there by a central bank digital currency against your will, or maybe you even foolishly think that it's going to be a good thing, or you stake your claim, you get into the game before the mad rush occurs. Now, I'm here to tell you that as someone who just got into crypto in 2021, January of 2021 was my first crypto purchase. I had to overcome a fairly steep learning curve, right? So I'm in my early 50s, right? And I know you might not have guessed that. but that being said, as we get older, our mind is not as agile. So this wasn't the easiest thing for me to do, but I did it. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. You will have that learning curve. I guarantee you, when this thing goes through, there's going to be a steep learning curve. And the problem with being dragged into it is you may trust someone that's not trustworthy to guide you. Okay? Now, I'm not that politician guy that says, trust me. I'm not that guy. What I am saying, though, is do your diligence, your work, your research now, so that you can protect yourself and your family in the future, because the people that you might want to have to rely on when this digital revolution, so to speak, occurs, they're not going to be the people that are necessarily out for your well-being.
Yes, very true. Very true. It's unfortunate. You have people like Warren Buffett saying that it's rat poison, stuff like that. Really.
Referring to what?
Bitcoin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
Charlie Munger says that he wouldn't buy it if it was at $5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but they're staked in the old system.
you
the
look at
old
their stock
ways.
portfolios. They're heavy on bank stock.
Right.
Because really, like crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, it makes banks really obsolete if you really think about it.
We are the bank.
Yeah.
When you look at it, especially with DeFi, like Celsius was and stuff, and I guess now that I touched on it, it almost begs the crack in the DeFi paradigm, so to speak. It almost begs for, and I think this is planned also, regulation. In some way or form, regulation.
Yeah. Well, stablecoins are not created equal, frankly. Some stablecoins have different algorithmic structures. So you saw with like Luna and UST, that was an algorithmic stablecoin. And when it cracked, when UST failed, actually...
US Tether, to clear it up, a Tether
Yes.
to the US dollar. So it's not the US dollar, but it's a cryptocurrency that mirrors the value, or the price, rather, of the US dollar.
Yes.
1-to-1.
Yes, it's a 1-to-1 peg of the US dollar. And there's different structures to it, like USDC and DAI. Those are actually over collateralized stablecoins, meaning that they have more in their reserves than stablecoins issued out.
Okay.
So let's say they have $2 in their bank, and they've only distributed $1 to the masses. So that's just kind of like they have like a 2-to-1 ratio usually.
Okay.
UST was an algorithmic stablecoin. So it was one algorithm that was constantly having to balance itself out. And it had no US dollars. It was only backed by very volatile cryptos, and it crashed due to a maintenance error.
Wow.
Yeah.
Somebody forgot to clean up the junk in the system?
Well, apparently what happened was they were trying to incorporate within their algorithm to purchase Bitcoin. So like every time someone purchased a UST stablecoin, that dollar that was purchased to purchase UST would then get fractionalized to purchase Bitcoin, to fill up the UST treasury with Bitcoin to back the algorithm.
Right, to have an asset on the ledger.
Exactly, but the developers were not able to successfully implement that on time. There was an attack prior to it, so it's actually this is going to be a movie one day.
Wow, James Bondish stuff, right?
Yeah, very insider potentially. But at the end of the day, going back to it, so the most popular stablecoin is actually USDT, Tether.
Correct.
They actually have some similar to the US Bank, but frankly better. Not gonna lie, because they have to have 75% of backing to their issuance.
Right, which is so to put it into perspective for everyone out there, traditional banking has what's called fractional lending.
Yeah. Meaning
they can lend, I think legally it's 10-to-1. They can lend out, so every time there's a dollar in the bank, they can lend out 10. Now, 2008 occurred because they're bankers. Who's gonna keep them honest, right? So they were at like 50-to-1 in some cases, or 70-to-1.
Yeah.
So they're lending out all this money, but they didn't have the asset to back it.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the reason why banks don't like it is because if blockchain is implemented in their system, they have to play honest.
And everything's transparent.
Yeah, they don't want that.
Immutable, like you said earlier, meaning it can't be changed, it can't be manipulated, and it's naked for all to see.
Anybody could just open up their laptop and look at exactly what their bank is doing.
Exactly.
That's what's happening with Celsius. So like on crypto Twitter, there's these like awesome auditors. Like they're just constantly like looking at the chain, and they're just kind of like corresponding.
Exactly.
So what happened?
A billion eyes.
Yeah, at once. And what's happening with Celsius, for example, they had Chainlink locked up in a smart contract. It was a lending protocol, and they unlocked $24 million worth of Chainlink, and they didn't put it back in their treasury. As you know, what's happening with Celsius is, unfortunately, they've gone too risky into DeFi, and they got bit in the butt, if you will. I don't know if I can cuss, but
Yeah. Butt is fine.
Okay.
I'm the butt of many jokes.
but essentially, like, they lost a lot of money in a lot of DeFi hacks. So, for example, they lost last year $54 million in a Badger DAO hack. Badger DAO is
Explain DAO, please.
Sure. DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization.
DAO, DAO.
Yes, and essentially, it's a community pool that really just kind of helps in regards. It's a liquidity pool, essentially.
Right, and they all agree to the same terms.
Yeah, exactly. It's really like an arbitrage opportunity, just as you would any investment opportunity. But Badger DAO is more of like a Bitcoin decentralized autonomous organization. But that's what Badger DAO was, and they were kind of venturing into it.
Okay.
But unfortunately, it was still in beta, but they were going heavy on it. They lost 51 million. That's just one of the issues. Yeah, and then also with the synthetic Ethereum issue as well, they're basically trapped in a bad contract right now, over $120 million worth of Ethereum. But
crazy.
Yeah. So going back to like the cracks are kind of showing themselves.
Right.
Yeah, Celsius is kind of like one of those. Unfortunately, not too sure if they're going to make it out, but really it's really stress testing the entire market, frankly.
Right, and here's something that I would like to, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Let me see who we got here. We got, I think, somewhere it says Omar's in Cancun or something like that. I hope you got a drink in your hand, Omar. Anyway, the thing about cryptos is they are very volatile. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say a couple things here. One, cryptos are very volatile. Mm-hmm. You do not want to get into it with money that you need to pay the rent with.
Definitely.
Okay? Two, there is a very wide discrepancy between a legitimate project in the cryptoverse and a fly-by-night going to pull the rug out from under you. That's called the rug pull in crypto terminology. That'll just come one day and then go the next, and there's your money. It's poof, it evaporates. So there's a huge difference there, and you need to get a little bit of education first. And it's great to start with Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the big daddy. So I tell all my listeners and the people that come to me in the business aspect of Bitcoin Otter. So just to throw that out there, bitcoinotter.com, you can see what I offer. I basically handhold the beginner how to purchase Bitcoin. I'm not I might be an evangelist for it, but I'm not going to convince anybody that doesn't want to be convinced. I'm not going to overcome your own logic, your own way of thinking. I'm not looking for those people. I'm not winning them over in the way that I will force you to come to a logical conclusion that I hold. I'm not going to do that. I'm here for the people who are interested in purchasing Bitcoin, but don't quite know how to go about it. So I'm there for the beginner, basically. So what I can do is hold your hand. How do I find the Bitcoin? How do I purchase it? And most importantly, how do I take possession of Bitcoin safely? So there are many things that need to be considered in that purchase, because once you have digitized your assets, so to speak, we'll just use Bitcoin for an example, you now have to protect it because freedom has a price. And in the case of cryptocurrency, that price is responsibility.
Definitely, and I see Bitcoin as more so like an insurance policy to, frankly, what the Federal Reserve is up to. Frankly,
right.
How things are kind of going. You look at the DXY. The DXY is the chart for really the value of the US dollar in a basket versus other fiat currencies. That thing is getting manipulated up and down crazy by the Federal Reserve. Like it's pretty wild. But it's really dependent on the emotions of really the market.
Right. The I would add the heavily manipulated emotions.
But at the end of the day, the reason the price swings are so intense is because of the market cap. It's still a baby. Like Bitcoin, even though it's the oldest crypto, it's still a baby in,
Right.
in
Explain
the
market
financial.
cap.
Sure, yeah. Market capitalization is just really how much money has been invested and is currently being held within a particular asset. So market capitalization of Bitcoin for a time was like, I believe in the $1 trillion, but since the crash, I believe it's now in the it's in the billions still.
Right, and a good place to see that visually is coinmarketcap.com.
Yes,
also
definitely.
coingecko.com. I'm not promoting one over the other. It's just that you can look at the coin market cap, what exactly the capitalization is for each project, each coin, each token, and you can see it compared to others.
Exactly. But if you compare, for example, Bitcoin's market cap versus gold's market cap, it's a fraction of what gold is.
Right.
But the potential for Bitcoin is way greater than just gold, frankly. Because if you look at the derivatives market, and I know we're talking more so like macroeconomics here, but like the derivatives market is $1,000 trillion market.
And here's the thing. Let me and disagree with me if I'm getting this wrong. Derivatives are basically ghost assets, right? I mean, they derive from real assets, so they're not in actuality solid assets. Derivatives are how people put their finger on the scale.
Yeah.
These are how people manipulate the weights and measures and of the old days. This is how they rig the game.
And really, the derivatives market is a huge pool of various assets, like whether it's like real estate, treasury bills, all sorts of different things.
Mortgages, right? I mean, think about this. And this is something that I read about a while ago, but mortgages are bought and sold, and parceled out daily, quickly. So you might not even know who holds your title, the title to your home that you hope to get after paying off your mortgage. So there are some people out there, and I remember reading this again, I don't know where it was from, but that can't get their title because nobody knows where it's at.
Yeah, and that's what happened in 2008, because there was like 4 names to 1 mortgage at one point. Like there was so much overlap, and it was all done in paper. Keep in mind, all of this, all of our value that we know of is tracked by paper bills. Right. Like something in a desk. You know what I mean? Like like a fire could take it out.
It's begging for something like the blockchain. Right?
Yeah.
It's begging for NFTs, a non-fungible token. A non-fungible token can be transferred to basically anything, right? So you're in the future, your license, your driver's license, the title to your car, the title to your home, all that is going to be in an NFT, a non-fungible token. It will be visible on the blockchain to who you want it to be visible to.
Definitely, yes. And I think Kevin O'Leary is kind of like spearheading physical assets backed into smart contracts, which I find very intriguing, and I think is like kind of the next step where NFTs are going. That's why I'm a big Ethereum bull, frankly. I love Ethereum. Anything that has like an NFT kind of protocol layer on top of it, I'm kind of bullish.
Right. And that's why I believe, and I've said this before on the show, I'm not a theta maximalist, but I'm a big theta fan.
Yeah, they have NFT layers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big fan of them.
So what they did, in my opinion, is they saw where the market was going. They saw where, in Spanish, la onda, right? They knew ahead of time, and they could see it because they're a very solid developmental team.
Yeah.
So they saw that coming, so they brought it up on their blockchain. Now, it's nowhere near as big as Ethereum's NFT blockchain by any means. However, they have it on their own blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think we were talking about this before the podcast, but I mean, the vice president of YouTube left YouTube to create Theta. So I mean, like, it's not like they don't have ammo,
right?
So to speak.
It's not like they're not well versed in the business world, right? And also, I think it was Steve Chen is who you're talking about.
Yes.
He was the co-founder of YouTube. So he's on the Theta with Mitch Liu, who is, I can't remember the projects he was involved in, but huge $1 billion projects.
Yeah, heavy hitters in that project. Really, it's competing with YouTube. It's decentralized YouTube, and that's something that we really need.
And they haven't, because of this turmoil, if you will, their project has not. I think personally, they're holding back the reins until there's a more solid footing out there. And whether they know or don't know the things that I'm talking about, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? So whether they do or do not believe that the Federal Reserve note is going to crash, okay, and the Klaus Schwab out there in hey, I'm going to make you a slave land, the World Economic Forum. He's ready to solve all these problems that he created.
Yeah, and you're definitely right. So a big thing, especially in the United States, is clarity. Right now, in terms of like the creators who are building these things, like depending on what laws pass, like they can either be like the next Zuckerberg or they can end up in jail. You know what I mean? There's a huge gray area right now with the developer world, and there's a lot of projects that have purposely held back because they're literally up in the air. They don't know if they're going to be praised or literally condemned.
Right. It depends on where the how would you say how the roll of the dice turns out, right? Where the coin flip. What the good guy's going to win? And these are my terms, not yours. I'm not trying to bring you into my jackpot, right?
You're okay.
Yeah. So the good guys, are they going to win, or is it the bad guys? Are they going to rule over us? Continued, but increasingly so because it's now digitized. Their hegemony over us is going to be digitized. The tyranny will be so much more severe because you can't get out of it. In a digitized world, you can't get out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the current powers that be, they're already picking winners. You know, like you look at Crypto.com, like they got a banking license before, X, Y, and Z exchange.
Right.
Voyager, for example, got $150 million investment into their treasury. So there's while Binance is having to deal with all these lawsuits and stuff like that. So the battle's already beginning, if you will. The powers that be are picking their bags, if you will, the Voyager bag or the Binance bag or the FTX bag or the Crypto.com bag. But that's already kind of happening in the background. So look at XRP. XRP was was number 2 or 3 prior to this lawsuit issue, and it looks like it's going to take time, but I really do believe that XRP was kind of being made of an example of. Unfortunately,
it could be, and here's my view of some of this, and tell me if you agree or you don't. And again, Joe, jump in here whenever you want.
Yeah.
But and a caller. We need a caller. You know what I was going to do, and I'm going to do this. This is something that we did last week. I offered $25 in Bitcoin to the first caller, right? And I'm going to do that today. And I know that there's going to be a difficulty. We have Spanish-speaking people watching us on YouTube and on Facebook. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break into a little bit of gringo Spanish here.
Yeah, go for it.
But I'm going to offer that same $25 in Bitcoin to the first Spanish-speaking caller that we get. Y por eso estoy hablando español en mi manera. Es cruda, yo sé, pero lo que estoy ofreciendo son $25 en Bitcoin por la primera persona que nos llama y habla español y diga, pues, con una pregunta para mí, para Rick o Joe, para tener una conversación.
Así es, así que si están escuchando, llamen al teléfono 956-789-0702, 956-0702 y gárense los $25 en Bitcoin.
Thanks, Joe. Y también lo siento que muchas veces olvido las personas que están escuchando en español o están mirando en español, incluyendo a familia. Pero la cosa es que estamos todavía no en el nivel en que podemos tenerlo completamente bilingüe, pero la cosa es que estamos en proceso de eso. Okay, Rick. So here's another thing what I like to do on the show, and I'm really happy to have you here. I mean,
it's a pleasure. This is fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you're here. So what I like to do is I like to put out some news of the day, so to speak, or at least in the last week, things that have popped, right?
Great.
So, and I'd like to have your opinion on this.
Sure.
And you don't have to, please, don't ever think that you have to agree with me. I would
okay.
appreciate a contentious debate, right?
Sure.
A friendly one, but hey, you got your point of view and I have mine. So here's my point of view, and this is, to me, ironic. This comes from RT, which a lot of people, it's the Russia Times, right? So yeah, they are state-sponsored media, but so is CNN. So here's what RT reports. That Russian SWIFT replacement ready for BRICS. Okay, to clear up everybody's perhaps confusion, BRICS is a conglomerate of nations, much like NATO. But BRICS, instead of the NATO nations, is made up of B, Brazil, R, Russia, I, India, C, China, and S, South Africa. BRICS nations. Okay, so they have their own way of working things out. Now, prior to these sanctions that these fools placed on Russia, because all they're doing is helping Russia, and it's very evident right now. Now, I won't get political about Ukraine and all that, but it kind of gives me the impression that I won't go into that right now. Let's just go to the story. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday that banks from BRICS nations can freely connect to the System for Transfer of Financial Messages, SPFS, Russia's alternative to SWIFT. What do you think about that, Rick?
Well,
wait, hang on one second. SWIFT is the Western way of transmitting financial transactions over digital services.
Well, unfortunately, we saw the manipulation when the Biden administration decided to halt all terms of transactions for Russia. I mean, freezing their assets as well.
Right.
That was kind of like pretty authoritarian if you look at it from a financial war.
And how could you not if you're Russian? If you're just an average Russian guy who likes to drink vodka.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's
how do you get your vodka without SWIFT?
The United States has been really weaponizing the dollar for a long time, and that's what sanctions are. It's just really weaponizing. It's economic warfare. They've been playing economic warfare, and really, we've lived in a unipolar world where the U.S. could really just do whatever and get away with it.
Yeah, I want to break in here, and it's a very interesting word you use there, unipolar. Okay, and you know who else used it? And I'm not opposed to this. Vlad Putin. Vlad Putin is saying, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're not going to have a unipolar world where the Western central bankers get to dictate whatever it is that they want to do, or whoever it is they want to subjugate based on predatory lending or whatnot.
And unfortunately, I know we live in the U.S. and we've been huge benefactors of this, being the U.S. dollar being the world-backed currency. But unfortunately, regardless if you're blue or red, there's been manipulation.
Absolutely.
And I think now nations are kind of getting a little bit more emboldened in moving away from the U.S. dollar. Look at El Salvador, for example.
Absolutely. I've showcased that situation ad infinitum here on the show. It's just, you can tell leaders that really care for their country because they're moving in a direction that is against what the normal and what so-called mainstream movers and shakers are doing. And Bukele, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, I don't know, but that's the president of El Salvador. He is actually, and I'm sure you know this, right? Bitcoin City is being built as we speak.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin City is being built, and how is it being built? Well, off of the proceeds that derive from the natural resources of El Salvador. They're using the volcanic vapor to probably turn some sort of energy transference machine into Bitcoin miners.
Yeah, that's
so the
huge.
Natural resources are coming into exclusively a currency exclusively owned by the country.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, if you look at everyone's bank reserves, it was predominantly US dollars, but looking at, and just think of it from a non-US or non-Russian perspective, like, you see the country that is using the US dollar as the global reserve currency, you see them well, of course not random, there were reasons as to why they did it, but they seized billions of dollars of assets from just
they like to use the word oligarchs so that the normal people, average normies, right, will think, oh, they're after the bad guys, they're after the bad Russians, right? But it was in the beginning anyway. It was hitting the average Russian family.
Oh yeah.
But of course they didn't care. right?
I mean, if you look at it, like what keeps our economy afloat is we need foreign countries purchasing our treasury bills. But if we freeze them, or if we're like, oh no, never mind, they're mine
Yes,
now.
yes.
Where is the trust?
I understand. I'm 100% on the wavelength you're on. And you know, one of the things that I've learned from Joe in the radio business. Okay, so we got 5 minutes left in the show. So what I'm going to do is a recap. Okay, I'm going to do the old Joe Martinez recap. So we started out by introducing, now becoming a fast friend, Mr. Rick Gamboa, and is on the show. He's been on the show. If you're just tuning in, please, we're going to have the recording up on Facebook and YouTube. The City 97.7. How is the title for the Bitcoin or
the keyword is the City 977.
The City 977 on YouTube. It'll be there, and then it'll be on Christopher Ott Facebook. And also the City 97.7 Facebook channels. So check it out because great conversation today. We started out with introducing Rick, who does a lot of computer tech stuff, very well versed in technical algorithms and so forth, all the things that you would imagine a coder in today's world would need. He's done it, he's been there, he's done it, and he's also, correct me if I'm wrong, an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
So yeah, you've staked out on your own, and you're going the way of the future in the now, which I encourage 100% all of us, and that's part of why I'm here. So then we had a couple news issues, right? So we went through the Swift replacement, and there's a bunch more here, but I'll tell you what, just having a conversation was like a breath of fresh air. Having a conversation on the level that I'm not able to go to the technical level that you have, Rick.
Oh no, it's been phenomenal.
But at the same time, it was so interesting to open up a conversation, have it. We didn't get a caller yet, right? But as our endeavor increases both in outreach and technical skills that I hope to gain. As that happens, we're going to have more interaction with our viewing and listening audience. It also will come to be that we'll have something here that we'll be able to say, hey, you know what? Everybody's included in the conversation. Another reason why I'm very happy that you're here, Rick. And by the way, you are invited to come on anytime you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate
Either in person, which is great. If you can't make it, you got some other thing going on, then by phone or video or whatever. And I also offered Rick an invite, which I'm going to offer to everybody now. Especially if you're in this area, only pretty much if you're in this area or willing to fly in, it could be you're willing to fly in for our Crypto Con Cafe meeting, right? So it's the McAllen, the first that I know of, McAllen Crypto Meetup. Now, a crypto meetup is just a bunch of guys coming, or gals also. Oh, by the way, and I'm sure you know this, 50% now, 50% of people who own or are into crypto are female.
That is a crazy stat, because 3 years ago, you could not say that at all.
Right. Right. So, I mean, they have that intuition, right? A woman's intuition, and they're using it, and now it's 50%, right? So, please, anybody who wants to come and talk crypto, talk about the ideas and stuff. So, hopefully Rick will be able to make it for the next one.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be the third Thursday in the month, third Thursday of the month.
July 21st.
July 21st?
July 21st.
July 21st. So, that being that, any final words from you, Rick?
Really, I appreciate the time. Definitely try to visit braintrustcrypto.com. I know we need to collaborate more in regards to that.
Yes, sir.
It's a free resource. It's just a blog aggregator tool that I created. It's really just to really bring out more information in regards to the blockchain space in real time. Posts every day. I don't touch it. It's literally just a server that I run, and it's just like collecting articles and such.
I'll tell you what. You send me a link, and I will put it on the Bitcoin Otter website.
Phenomenal. Great.
All right. I'll do that. So braintrustcrypto.com.
Yes. Braintrust Crypto.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Rick.
Now, if they want to get a hold of you, I forgot to include some information just in case anyone's watching us and they want to get a hold of Rick. How can they get a hold of you, Rick?
Yeah, you can visit LinkedIn. I'm super active on LinkedIn. Rick Gamboa. Yeah, that'd be fun. If you guys want to have a chit chat any day, I'll be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else, Joe?
No, nothing on this end.
All right. Well, we're going to sign off. Thank you very much, all of you that stuck it through to the end. And if you're here now, go back if you will. If you didn't catch the beginning of the show, great show today. Great show. Thanks again, Rick. Thanks again, Joe.
It was a pleasure.
Have a great week and come on back. God bless you.
Let's go! This is the Bitcoin Otter Radio Show.
Oh my God, I love you so much!
On 97.7 FM, The City.
KCYP LP 97.7 FM, Mission McAllen.
Tu aliento lento habla felicidad. Se escuchan versos en la gravedad. Llega el momento y se va. Escuchado